Hello all, this is Roshit Morpur. I'm a Salesforce developer. I do have experience of working with public sector clients as well as sales and service clients. So in these sessions, we'd be discussing about platform events. The major agenda which we would be covering in these sessions are: what is a platform event? What was the need for platform events? How to publish a platform event using the Apex Publish framework? How to validate the response for the synchronous publishing of platform events, and how to track the response for the asynchronous publishing of platform events. And if required, how to republish the failed platform event messages. Let's get started. In order to understand the platform event, it is important for us to understand what an event-driven software architecture is. So historically, the software systems were often connected via a point-to-point integration. This approach involved establishing a direct connection between individual applications to enable data and communication exchanges. In other words, each integration between two systems was specifically created and maintained, resulting in a tangled web of connections as the number of systems increased. So as you can see, in the case of a point-to-point integrations, the major drawbacks were regarding the scalability and maintenance. As the number of systems that were connected to one another increased, so did the maintenance of the individual connections between these systems. In order to overcome this particular integration anomaly, we introduced something called as event-driven software architecture. An event-driven software architecture addresses the drawbacks of point-to-point integrations by introducing a more flexible and scalable approach to integrating systems. In an event-driven architecture, the communication between different software components is based on events, sometimes also called as messages, that indicate the occurrence of a specific action or change in the system. So when an event is generated, it is broadcasted to all the interested parties, and each component can decide on how to respond to that particular event. So in a simplistic terms, if you are a Salesforce organization, an event could be as simple as something like updating the status of an account. It could be updating the opportunity to closed. It could be a lead to opportunity to account conversions, or it could be updating the status of a case to closed. Any activity which is important for your business process could be considered as an event. To understand it better, let's take a look at some of the major players involved in an event-driven software architecture. As you can see in my screen, the first and the foremost is the event, which we have already discussed. So anything which is essential for your business process can be termed as an event. It could be an account going to sold status. It could be lead converting into opportunity. It could be an opportunity that is sold, or it could be a status update on the case record. Anything which is essential for your business process is contribute to an event. Now, once you have an event, you would want the responding systems to know some information about that specific event. For example, if we take the example of an account being updated to sold status, the system would definitely want to understand what is the account, what is the account number, what are the contacts associated to that particular account, what is the rating of that particular account. So they would want to know the basic information of that particular account so that they can take subsequent action on that particular account. So information corresponding to an event is called as an event message. Event producers. Well, this is very simple. In case if we take the previous example, you are actually a Salesforce system in which the account is getting updated, and you want to publish that information to a set of other systems. So in that case, any system which is producing the event message is actually the event producer. As you know, if there is an event producer, there could be one or multiple consumers. There could be one or multiple systems that would want to consume that particular event message, and they would be called as event consumers. Now, how does the event producer and the event consumer interact with one another? That is achieved through the event channel. So event channel is the connecting link between an event producer and the event consumer. The event channel is usually hosted in a bus called as event bus. So all the event messages pass through their respective event channel, and event channels are usually hosted on a bus called as event bus. Now, event bus is actually helpful in terms of persisting the event messages for a certain duration of time so that any of the subscribers could very conveniently resubscribe or replay a particular event message within the retention period. That's the role of an event bus. In order to understand it one step better, let's take an example of something. In order to understand this better, let's take an example of something which we see in our day-to-day life. So let us suppose that I, as an individual, is interested to publish an educational video on platform events, right? So in order to do that, what I would do is I would create a video which would consist of the basic explanation about the platform events, how to use platform events, and all the other details. Once I've created that video, I would want that video to be reaching the audience through a common platform. In today's world, the free common platform to reach the audience is basically YouTube. Now, can I post my video directly on YouTube? Yes, but through a specific channel. Henceforth, what I would do is I would create a channel in YouTube, which is Simplified Salesforce, and I would publish my video into the Simplified Salesforce channel. Now, in this example, it can be very clearly found that since I, as an individual, is looking forward to provide or publish a video, an educational video for platform events, that makes me actually the event producer, right? And what do I produce? I produce an event message which is in the form of a video. So that forms the event message. Where do I publish my video? I publish my video in a specific channel on the YouTube medium, right? So Simplified Salesforce acts as an event channel and YouTube acts as the event bus. Now coming to the subscription part, either one or multiple users could subscribe to my channel. As soon as they subscribe to my channel, they would receive a notification when I publish a video saying that a new video has been published in so-and-so channel. The subscribers also have the ability to either like or comment, which is basically an interaction from the subscriber to the consumer. So this is the real life example of how event-driven software architecture works. This is very common and it's also applicable to other social platforms like Twitter, wherein we publish a tweet. The tweet is actually published on our Twitter handle. Either one or multiple subscribers could subscribe our Twitter handle and based on that can consume that particular tweet. So now since we understand how an event-driven software architecture works, let's move forward and understand what is a platform event. So a platform event is nothing but a representation of an event message in terms of an event-driven software architecture. So platform event or platform event messages are equivalent to the event or event messages in an event-driven software architecture. Salesforce Enterprise Message Platform offers us the benefit of event-driven architecture, which is achieved through the platform events. Since we have understood what are the basic attributes of an event or an event message in an event-driven software architecture, it will become easy to correlate that when we try to understand about the platform events and the platform event messages. So the categorization of the platform events can be basically categorized into two categories. The first one is standard platform events. Now, as the name suggests, a standard platform event is something which is provided out of the box by Salesforce. It will have its predefined platform event definition. It will have its predefined fields. As a developer, will not be able to manipulate or modify the platform event definition or the fields of a standard platform event. We'll only be able to consume it. Now, where is it useful for us? Let us take an example of a standard platform event called as batch apex error event. Now, when you are executing a batch apex, in case if there is an exception or an error, what Salesforce can do is it can publish a platform event message to this particular channel, which is the batch apex error event. And all we would have to do as a developer is to consume that particular message, to understand the records which have failed as part of the batch execution. In order to do that, while we are creating the batch Apex class, we'll have to implement the database.trace platform events interface. So as I told you, the standard platform events is something which cannot be manipulated by a user. We only have the ability to consume the platform events that are published in that specific channel, which will be for each and every different purposes. For example, the one which we've discussed right now is specific to a batch Apex. There are many other standard platform events which could be referenced from the platform developer guide. Moving forward. So this was all about the standard platform events. Let's move forward and understand what a custom platform event is. So Salesforce would provide us the ability to create a custom platform event. Now, when we are dealing with platform events, we could either be an event producer or be an event consumer, or we could be both. We could be the event producer as well as we could be the event consumer. So let us take an example of an event producer. If Salesforce is an event producer, obviously we'll have to define the platform event definition, right? We'll have to define a wrapper under which we would define the fields which would constitute the event message. So the first step towards being an event producer is to define a platform event definition. The second step would be to create the fields inside the platform event definition. And the third step would be to actually create records under the platform event definition, which would form the eventual event message that will be published, right? So this is very similar to an SObject. So in case of an SObject, when you're trying to create a custom SObject, you create the custom SObject definition, you add fields to the custom SObject, and then eventually you add records to the custom SObject. Each of those records are called as SObject records. In case of a platform event, it will be called as a platform event record or an event message. In case if you're an event consumer, then you are not particularly interested about the dynamics of the platform event definition. That is, the creation of the platform event definition may or may not be related to you. The important part would be about the consumption of that particular platform event message. So as an event consumer, you'll be more interested in terms of consuming the platform event, understanding what are the attributes of the platform event message, and then taking consequent action based upon the platform event message. That is the role of an event consumer. Now, these two examples were broadly based upon the fact that either we are an event producer or we are an event consumer, right? But there could be scenarios in which we are both the event producer as well as the event consumer. For instance, if there is a Salesforce org instance wherein you are working on a billing part actually, right? And once a code has been moved to status closed, you would want to publish a platform event so that the other modules of the application could consume that platform event and take necessary action. In that case, you are the event producer because based upon the change in the status of the code, you are actually doing an action of producing a platform event and publishing it. The other modules of the application, which are again in Salesforce instance, would be the event consumers who would consume that message and take necessary action. So that's a place wherein you become an event producer as well as an event consumer. So moving forward, now we'll discuss about how to define a custom platform event. We'll be navigating to the application to see it live in action. Before doing that, I just wanted you to be aware that we have previously discussed how a platform event is very similar to a custom SObject. So in terms of the object definition, when you try to create a platform event, you can observe that the object definition is very similar to how we create a custom SObject. Similar is the case with fields. When we try to create the fields under the platform event definition, it would have a very similar user interface when we're trying to create a field for a custom SObject. Let's look at some of the differences between these two entities. So a standard and a custom SObject. So a custom SObject is differentiated from a standard SObject based upon the annotation __C. So it has a suffix which is __C in its API name, which differentiates a custom SObject in comparison to a standard SObject. Similarly, in case of platform event, it has a different annotation. It is denoted by __E as a suffix. So E stands for event. Henceforth, any platform event definition object will be denoted by the API name __ E. We cannot edit or delete a platform event record. So we can create and we can read a platform event record or a platform event message, but will not be able to edit or delete a platform event record. We also cannot view the records of a platform event in user interface, which means that we do not have a page layout. We cannot have a tab expose the platform event records directly on the user interface level. The PE objects, the platform event objects, are not available in Schema Builder. Neither do they support SOQL or SOSL. This is the most important point, actually, that we'll not be able to do an SOQL or SOSL search on the platform event records. They aren't supported on the platform event definition. The last one, if we delete a platform event definition, it will be permanently deleted from the system. So unlike a custom SObject, which is when it is deleted, it will be moved to the recycle bin, and we still have the ability to reinstate the custom SObject during a specified interval of time. That facility is not available for the platform events. So if we delete the platform event definition, it will be directly deleted and it will not be stored in the recycle bin. So these are some of the points which we should take into consideration. Let's move forward. So while we are trying to define a PE or a platform event, first thing we would do is we would define a platform event definition, which is step one. We'll be adding custom fields to the platform event definition. We'll understand what is meant by the publish behavior. And the last one, we'll understand some of the system fields which are relevant to the entire process of publishing the platform events. So let's navigate to the application. We'll go to the setup, home, we'll search for platform events, navigate to platform events, we'll create a new platform event. As you can see, the UI is pretty much similar to that of a custom SObject, but there are very few fields as compared to a custom SObject definition. So we will create something called as demonstration, provide a plural name for it. Object API name to demo the creation of a platform event. We have two fields, both of them have been auto-populated. The event type has two values, or we should say that had two values. Previously, we could create something called as a standard volume platform event, but going forward, we would only be able to create high value volume platform events. We'll be discussing about the event type in detail in future. Similarly, for the publish behavior, we have two values. Publish after commit is something which has been auto-selected for us, but we can also have, or we can also select a different value called as publish immediately. The publish behavior has a significance in terms of when do we want the event message to be published during a transaction. We'll also be discussing use cases to understand this better. The deployment status is something which you have already seen in the custom SObject definitions. In case if you are working on the platform event definition, suppose you have some change which you don't want to be visible to other developers or the system in itself, then you can deploy or you can keep the deployment status as in development and save the changes. Those changes will not be available to the other developers. In case if you feel that all of the changes that you have done are finalized and there is no problem with these changes being visible to the end users or to the other developers or to the system in itself, then you can deploy the platform event in deployed status. So you'll go ahead and save this information. As soon as you save this information, the way we had entered during the creation of the platform event definition is visible here. The API name, as we had called out, as __ E appended to it, which indicates the API name of the platform event. The event type and the publish behavior were already auto-populated and at the value which we had provided or which was auto-populated during the point of creation. Let's take a look at some of the standard fields which are created by default, right? So there are 4 standard fields which are created by default. The first one is created by, which is straightforward, created date, which is the created date for the platform event. We do have something called as event UUID, which is universal unique identifier, and something called as replay ID. We'll be discussing each of these two fields in detail in the upcoming slides. For now, it is important to understand there are 4 standard fields which are created. Going back to the slides, so we have already created a platform event. The only permission that is needed for us to create a platform event is customize application, and we know where to find or how to create a platform event now. Let's move on to create some of the custom fields for the platform events. So going back, the custom fields and relationships, we'll click on new. Now, as you can see, unlike in the case of a custom SObject, there are only very few options that are available in case of a platform event. This itself is an indication that although they are very much similar in terms of the architecture, but they aren't supposed to be used for the exact same purpose, which means that whatever is the purpose of a custom SObject, we don't want to have an exact replica of a custom SObject in terms of a platform event. Platform event is more in terms of integrating or a sense of communication between the systems or between the modules. Henceforth, it does not have all the different data types that are available with a custom SObject. It's a critical factor to understand. Now, if you want to easily remember about the data types that are available for a platform event, think of it as a very simple formula wherein you always would need a string field, you would need a number field, and you would need a checkbox field, like a Boolean field. So these 3 are the most basic types which you would need for any kind of record. So if you're storing any kind of information, these are the 3 most basic types which are definitely needed. Henceforth, they have been provided in case of a platform event field. Besides these, the only additional data type that is available is date and date time, which is also a very commonly used data type and forms a primitive data type, right? So easy to understand. You'll have some data type for storing the string values. You'll have a data type for storing the number value, and you'll have a data type for storing the Boolean value. These are the most 3 basic types. Besides that, you have date and date time. So for string, we have text and text area. For number, we have number. For checkbox or for Boolean, we have checkbox, and the additional one is date and date time. For now, we'll select something called text. We'll go here and we'll just simply name it as demo name. The length can be 18. The description is a text field for the demo. You can either mark it as required or not required, depending upon the business requirement. The default value is actually, you also have the provision of creating a formula field or creating a formula actually, based upon which the default value for this particular field would be derived. Right? So these are the only options that are available for you to be filled. Once you click on save, unlike a custom SObject, you are not prompted to provide the object or the field level security for this particular fields that you have created, right? Since the platform events is something which will be accessible across the board for create and read purposes. It will not be available for edit and delete. So this was all about the custom fields. So we have seen how to create a platform event definition. Now we have seen how to create custom fields. Let's move back to our slides. Let's talk briefly about the publish behavior. Now, as I had shown you, the publish behavior had 2 options. It was publish after commit or publish immediately. The publish after commit is relevant when we want to create a platform event message or publish the platform event message once the entire transaction that is responsible for it is committed to the database, right? So let's take a very simple example. Suppose we want an external system to be notified if the account status is updated to sold, right? In that case, what the system does under the hood is, once the account status is updated to sold, it will also close all the opportunities that are related to the account. It will look into the status of all the contacts that are associated to the account and probably update a field on the contact. And once all of these updates are done, only then it will allow the account status to be updated to sold, right? So these are dependent transactions. Account status update is dependent on the closure of the opportunities as well as updating a specific field on the contact, right? Now, if the behavior or the publish behavior has been kept as publish after commit, it would ensure that the platform event is published only once all of these transactions are complete. In case if there is an error, because of which the account status update is rolled back, the platform event message will not be published. It is very important to understand the specific behavior because it may send a wrong message to the external system if the publish behavior is not kept accordingly. If we take the same example, if we put the publish behavior as publish immediately, what would happen is as soon as the status transition for the account happens to sold, an event message would be sent to the external system, probably stating that the account has been updated to sold. What happens if there is a failure in terms of updating the opportunity? The entire transaction would be rolled back and account would not be present in the sold status. But what we have done is we've already provided a platform event message stating that the account has been updated to sold status. This part of the logic hence creates a difference between the systems that are interacting to one another through the platform event message. Henceforth, the publish behavior is of utmost importance for us. Going back to the publish behavior of publish immediately, there could be multiple scenarios. For instance, if there is any specific, if there is a system which is actually an audit system, right? And it's logging any changes that are made to a record. Whether the record changes are successful or not is not of relevance to the audit system. It is just taking into account if an end user was actually on a record and tried to make a change. The commit was successful or not successful is not a point which audit system is taking into account. In such a case, the publish immediately would be a very good option for us to do, wherein we could actually, as soon as the action has taken place or the event has occurred, we could publish a platform event message immediately that will be received by the recipient system or within the same system, and the recipient or the consumer can take consequent or subsequent actions on that particular event message. I hope that clarifies the publish behavior. For most of the scenarios, I assume that it would be beneficial for us to use the publish after commit publish behavior, since we would want the entire transaction to be committed. But it also depends upon a case-to-case basis. The second most important point to be taken into consideration is the publish after commit is counted against the Apex DML limits, or it falls under the Apex DML statement governor limits. So for Apex governor limits, we have 150 per transaction. That's the governor limit. So depending upon the platform events, if you're publishing the platform events with publish behavior as publish after commit, it would count against that limit. In case if we are using the publish behavior as publish immediately, it will be counted against a separate limit of 150. So it is captured separately, henceforth it is not counted against the Apex DML statement governor limits. Moving forward, we spoke about two system fields. One of them was the replay ID and the other one was event UUID field. Now, when you're sending a stream of event messages, we would always want to ensure that the recipient system is consuming those messages in a sequential order, right? For example, if a lead has been converted to an account, an opportunity, and a contact. Now, we would want the recipient system to first consume the account information, then consume the contact information, and then eventually consume the opportunity information. In order to do that, there has to be a sequential order in which the platform event messages should be published. Although we can take care of that in the code, but how would we ensure, or how would the platform event or event-driven software architecture ensure that the recipient system is actually consuming that information in a sequential order? This is achieved through replay ID. So whatever messages or the messages as and when they are received in the event bus, once they are subscribed or once they are taken care by the consumer or consumed by the consumer, they have a replay ID associated to them. The replay ID serves a couple of benefits actually. The first and the foremost is it is the field which indicates the sequential order of the event messages, the most important point, right? The second one is idempotent design. Now, what is an idempotent design? An idempotent design is actually a design framework to ensure that we are not consuming the same message again and again. So in case if you have already consumed a message, you could use the replay ID for that particular message. And the next time, if the same message comes to you, you can take a decisive action. If you want to consume that particular message or you want to discard that particular message, that could be taken care by using the replay ID. The third thing is event replace. So in case if the destination system was down, like the consumer was down, and they know the event which they consumed last, they could request the event bus to send them all the events after a specific replay ID. And it will be the responsibility of the event bus ensure that they get the sequential stream of event messages post the event message which the consumer has requested for. So that is how we maintain a sequential order in terms of a stream of messages. Now, just to add to that particular point, since we briefly spoke about event bus, the event bus could persist messages for 72 hours, which means that in case if your system was down for a brief period of time, as a consumer, you still have the flexibility of trying to replay an event message from the last event message that you had consumed. That can only be done using the replay ID. Let's move on. We'll be talking about the event UUID. Now, as I've already told you briefly, the UUID represents the universally unique identifier. So event UUID is kind of a row ID or a unique ID that is associated to each event message universally. The event UUID comes into picture when we are looking forward to a failure scenario. So in case if you have published an event message, the event message failed to get published into the event bus. There is a publish callback failure mechanism that has been implemented by Salesforce, and we would need this UUID field to identify that particular event message and to decode what would have been the content of that particular event message and to republish them, right? So it's a unique identifier. All the event messages would have this unique identifier with them, and we'll be using that particular unique identifier to republish those messages. So these were the system fields which we spoke about. This is all we have for this session. From the next session, we will be covering how to publish a platform events using Apex. What are the different ways to instantiate a platform event definition? How do we provide a value to the platform event fields? And the most important point, how do we publish a platform event record actually? Hope you enjoyed this session. Please do let me know in comments in case if there is any comments you would have. If you like the video or if there is any improvement needed, I would like to hear about them. Thank you.